Do you mess around with NFTs at all?
I was very, very early to NFTs. And it's not very popular in some sectors of this industry, specifically with Bitcoin maximalists, et cetera. And it's why I make such a serious delineation between monetary maximalism and then like the technology competition. But in May of 2020 or so, I started to hear about it, look at it. It was interesting to me, et cetera. And the more that I dug into it, I realized I was like, this is the same argument as to Bitcoin versus gold, right? The digital version of something is always bigger than the analog version, right? So the physical version.
Is that just your gut says, or is there?
Name one asset that you can think of where the physical version is not bigger than the digital version.
I can't. And you have just put words to something that I feel, but have never had words. That feels so true to me. That's why I'm so hyped about Bitcoin and Ethereum and NFTs. Is like, dude, my brain switched over to digital so fast on artwork, I can't tell you. So there was actually, I found myself, somebody wanted to send me something and they were like, oh, I want to send you, I forget what it was, a painting or something like that. And I, in my heart was like, oh man, if it was an NFT, I would fucking love it. But I'm like, the physical thing, thank you. That's so sweet. It's, oh my God, so kind. But go ahead and keep it. It's weird how fast that happened.
The thing, if you just go down the line, so the easy examples are shopping, all that type of stuff. Taxis, Uber. The reason why most investors missed Uber as an investment opportunity is they compared Uber to the total addressable market of the taxi industry. Well, that was actually the wrong analysis.
That's really interesting.
Because the digital version of taxis ended up actually not owning any cars. And it was a market expanding technology because it didn't just eat taxis. It didn't just eat black cars. There are millions of people in the United States who are young, who don't own a car, and they Uber everywhere. How many people in Manhattan own a car? Well, most of the young people, they just Uber everywhere or they use public transportation, right? And so what ends up happening is the opportunity or the addressable market expanded drastically with a digital version of the analog. If you look at gold's market cap's about 10 trillion. Bitcoin today is 1 trillion. I fully believe that Bitcoin is not only going to drastically eclipse gold's market cap, but it'll be a market expanding technology. If you ask me right now how to go buy gold, I couldn't tell you.
Agreed.
I'd have to call a broker or go on a website or, I'd have to figure it out. I don't know how to do that. Myself and most digital natives know exactly how to buy Bitcoin. And so you look at that, now bring it to art. The art market, depending on how you count or whatever, $1 trillion or less, right? The digital art market, you just said it. OpenSea did $3 billion in transaction volume in a single month.
It's crazy.
And so why is Bitcoin better as a global store of value than gold? Why is the digital version better than the analog? Well, one, there is a digital component to it, meaning that anyone in the world with an internet connection can sign in and immediately start to transact in it. So there's an accessibility advantage. Two is there's fractionalization. I don't have to buy a full Bitcoin at $45,000, $50,000. I can buy a piece of a Bitcoin. Three is that I can carry it around really simply on my phone, right? Or on my laptop rather than lugging around physical gold. So there's a portability advantage to it. And then you start to look at it from a storage cost, et cetera, right? There's a whole bunch of advantages, digital version versus the physical version. What happens with the digital art? It's the same thing. More accessible, more divisible, more portable, all this type of stuff. And so if we're going to go and move our lives into this like metaverse digital world, whatever, is the new way to describe it, why would we leave the assets we care about in the analog world? No, we're going to bring them into the digital world too.
All right, I'm going to try to touch on something ephemeral to just drive this point home. Have you ever looked at a VV Vault?
VV Vault, no.
Yeah,
what is that?
Okay, this is so crazy. So VV is a collectibles company that's partnered with like DC, Marvel to do, but their NFTs look like actual collectibles. So it looks like a toy, it looks like a statue, like they're going out of their way to sort of literally just digitize the collectibles industry. But their brilliant move, and I'm still dazzled by this, is that they gave their users the ability to create these. They've made it right now. I'm sure future iterations won't, but it looks like a vault. So you're going through a vault door and then you're on the inside, but it's just a virtual space for you to display all the things you've collected. The level of creativity that people show in placing their items is insane. So I'll give you one example. The way that they have programmed this space. So one of the collectibles you can buy is the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. And one guy put it upside down and on the roof. So it's actually outside the vault, but it plays an animation in a loop of the flux capacitor turning on, which has all this electricity, right? If you remember the movie, all the electricity sparks and then it disappears. So it does that animation. So as you walk through this guy's vault every 30 seconds, whatever, all this electricity just runs around the ceiling because he's placed his collectible. And I was like, oh my God, if I have the physical thing, you have to come into my house to see the physical collectible. B, it's not gonna have electricity sparking everywhere. Yeah. It's gonna zap some kid walking by. So not only now am I only bridled by my imagination, but anyone, anywhere can come and see this. And so now as a social creature that wants to connect with my community, and I'm given these virtual tools, I don't need to be wealthy, right? You no longer need a big crazy house to display all of this art. You can create this virtual thing, put all your stuff in a way that only you have done. It takes time, right? You talk about money as this equation to time. So we know we value time. So when I see somebody who's spent their time creating something like this, I'm just like, oh my God, like this is so much cooler than what collectibles have ever been ever before in history. And so I start thinking about, all right, now you're gonna have companies that spring up that are making virtual galleries where the gallery itself is like this crazy physics defying piece of art. And you're not just walking through a mimicry of a traditional gallery. You're on the fucking moon, you're in outer space, you're inside the body, whatever you want. Like it is the creativity that the digital realm unleashes, because you no longer have to obey the laws of physics. It's just, oh my God.
I think there's an element of like, you don't have to obey the laws of physics. You also don't have to ask permission of anybody.
Preach.
Right? So, if you go and you look at an art gallery in Manhattan, for example, how many people really got an opportunity to design the art gallery? Well, they're usually people who have some sort of pedigree. They got trained somewhere, right? There's like all these like hurdles to get in. And so it ends up being a lot of the same people who all know each other and they're the ones who do it. On the internet, imagine if you held a global competition for whoever could create the best art gallery, right? And there was like a prize for it. You'd get some really, really cool stuff because there was no barriers to become the person who could do that. That's all this is it's now just saying, but you don't have to come do it in Manhattan, like just do it on the internet. And I think that, the best analogy I have for this is think of Twitter. If I said to you, Tom, you know what you're going to do every day? You're going to go hang out in this virtual reality square and you're going to talk to random strangers. You'd be like, dude, that sounds like cool to like test one time, but like I got things to do. But what do? You go through the portal, which is your computer or your phone, and you go and you hang out in a digital square and you talk to strangers. Like that is in some weird way a version of virtual reality, right? I tweeted recently, I said, we live in virtual reality already. It doesn't look like the thing that you put, the Oculus headset on and you walk around, you can touch and feel things. And like that's like level, 2, 3, 4, 5 of virtual reality. But Twitter created virtual reality for people and you can go there and hey, every day we all come here and meet up again. Right? And you keep going. And then what am I basically doing? I'm basically walking around the square and I'm saying, okay, Tom's talking about this person's talking about this person's talking about this. And I have a choice. Do I want to butt into the conversation? Do I want to reply? Do I want to quote tweet? Do I want to say, hey, Tom just said whatever and I go and tell my friends? That's a retweet button. Like you start to think through this and it's like, yeah, this is all going to happen. How quickly does it happen? Up for debate. What technologies is it built on? Up for debate. How should an investor invest? Up for debate. How should you as a market participant who's not an investor but wants to be a user, how should you use this stuff? Up for debate. But I think that one of the trends that every great investor has figured out, or one of the activities, is just find that kind of direction that the world is moving, as be an observer, understand the world's moving this way, and then go and say, okay, well, what are people using?
To your point about observing it, to not judge it. So one of the things the NFT market has taught me is that, in fact, I wrote my rules. They were tongue in cheek when I wrote them, but I think I should publish them, is that everything you think is cool is going to go to zero, and everything that you think is dumb is going to moon. And I've just seen that play out over and over and over again. It's really hard to predict what other people are going to think is cool, because it's really a moment is created. Energy is orchestrated somehow through this. It's not an invisible hand, because there are some people that are really good at it, but they can get the energy moving towards a project for whatever reason. Like, I don't know if you paid attention to what happened with Loot. So the guy that I consider my king of alpha, David, he sent me a tweet. Like, I was about to go to bed, and he was like, "Hey Tom, this thing called Loot is popping off. Look at it." I looked at it and I'm like, this is white words on a black background. This doesn't make any sense. And I was like, but I know this industry, and if people believe that this is like new, fresh, exciting, that at least for a moment, there's going to be this influx of attention. Now, that moment could be 10 years. That moment could be 10 minutes. I have no idea, but I'm getting better and better at sort of arbitraging some of these things. So I bought 2 of them. And then a couple of days later, if you owned them, you got an airdrop of basically their token. And I didn't even know about the airdrop. And the same guy, David, was like, "Hey, Tom, because you bought 2, you've been airdropped this stuff, but you actually have to go pull it out of the contract directly. And so I'll show you how to do it. So here you go into Etherscan, and this is how you do it." And I got it, and I got my 2 bags of gold. And as of that day, that thing, so I bought the ones that I bought, I think I bought it, I can't remember if it was 1.9 ETH for the original Loots or 0.9, but it was in there somewhere. And at the time I got the gold, which, remember, I didn't even know existed. I was already making money hand over fist just on the actual squares that I bought. And the bags of their coin that my friend had to tell me were there, I went and sold one of the 2 for $50,000. And I was like, I imagine if a friend was like, "Hey dude, I know you don't know, but in your bread box in the back cupboard, a guy just left you 50 grand. You'd be like, "What just happened?" It was so surreal. And I was just like, okay, don't think about things, think about the nature of things. And I was like, this is telling me something about the nature of humans, of creative energy, of attention, and how it can be swayed, about enthusiasm, and how it moves sort of restlessly. It never lands on one thing and stays. And so there's these really predictable curves that these projects go through. And I'm like, hold on. If you do your, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 hours of research, and you'd like really figure this game out, obviously never invest a single dime over what you're prepared to lose, because NFTs are the single highest risk investment I've ever seen humanity come up with. I want to make that really fucking clear. But it is so interesting to see how it captures that same part of the psyche around sports betting, how we're all locked up because of what's going on with COVID. Like, there's all these factors that have come into play, and just that crypto's taking off, and NFTs have answered the question of whether there's a real thing there and whether people will value them. But once I stopped judging the market and just started saying, this is happening, whether I think it should or not, whether I think white text on a black background should be cool or not, it is. And it's capturing energy. And dude, it wasn't long ago that I made $50,000 a year. So I was like, this is so crazy. And this comes back to like my obsession. People need to do their own research. I cannot predict the future. You cannot predict the future. Who knows? This could all go to nothing tomorrow. That does not seem likely. And given what's going on today, the nature of the technology, right? Understand it, think from first principles, and it becomes far easier to do novel things. But just looking at what's going on, I legitimately want to, with all the caveats of you have to be so careful, you cannot go blindly into this. But I can think of few things that are worth people's time and energy to understand more than the blockchain. And that, if this were a baseball game, we are still in the locker room getting ready to come out onto the field. It's like, because I mean that from a technology standpoint, like even forget just that you could buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever today and it will go up in value. What's going to be built on the back of the technology will create a world that will be as unrecognizable as a post-internet world would have been to me in 93 before I'd even heard of email to now. I mean, that's utterly just, it's a transformation that I could never have predicted. It's going to be the same thing. But this one's happening in full view because we already have the internet. So it's already, you and I are talking right now to, hopefully millions of people. And then on top of that, we've all seen it happen before. So you can say, hey guys, remember mobile phones? Hey guys, remember the internet? This is a big one like that. And so I think this is going to be, I'm going to make a statement and you're going to say whether I'm a fool or not. I think this will be the biggest wealth transfer ever that we've ever seen, like robber baron moment type wealth transfer. But it's not going to go to a really, really small number of people. It's going to go to whoever the fuck takes the time to learn about this and go, there's some percentage of my daily income. It will go to people who don't even think in net worth terms yet. Because this is, as Raoul Paul said, this is the first time in human history where the average person has been able to front run the institutions. So this is a chance for people to get $10 every paycheck, whatever, but like to get in. And now whether it just becomes sort of wealth redistributed, because so many, like the older and more established your wealth, the less likely you are to move on this quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got to think too, from an investing standpoint, you've got to ask yourself, like, who?
What's up, guys? Bang, bang. Thanks so much for watching the Best Business Show today. If we're going to be the best business show, we obviously need the best partner. That's why the exclusive sponsor of the Best Business Show is SoFi. They're an all-in-one platform that allows you to invest in all kinds of different assets, including stocks, ETFs, crypto, IPOs, and they even have an automated investing function, if that's your thing. So before we start getting after it again, make sure that you go download SoFi, you get an invest account, and when you make your first crypto trade, regardless of what you buy, they'll give you $10 in Bitcoin for free. It's that simple. Head on over to SoFi.com/pomp to get started today. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you come back and watch more of the Best Business Show tomorrow.